She had been cleaning that restaurant for 11 years. 11 years of arriving before the sun came up. 11 years of scrubbing other people's messes off floors that were never going to have her name on them. 11 years of yes sir, right away sir, of swallowing things that should have made her scream because the rent was due and her daughter needed new shoes and some battles cost more than they give back. And on a Tuesday night in October, in front of a full dining room, in front of her co-workers, in front of the man who had just told her she was nothing, Rose Carmichael did one thing, one quiet, precise, devastating thing that nobody in that room saw coming. Stay with me, because this story is about more than what happened to one woman in a restaurant in Nashville, Tennessee. It is about every person who has ever been told they are less than what they know themselves to be, and what happens when the world finally has to look them in the eye and see them correctly. Subscribe right now if you are new here. Hit the bell, and drop in the comments, where are you watching from tonight? This story travels. We want to know how far. Rose Carmichael was 44 years old. She was a janitor at Magnolia House, one of the most expensive restaurants in downtown Nashville. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, a wine list that cost more than Rose made in a month. The kind of place where people celebrated things that had already been decided, promotions, engagements, partnerships, because the deal was done and the dinner was the performance of the deal. Rose cleaned it every morning before anyone arrived. She mopped the floors that the chef would walk across without looking down. She polished the brass fixtures that the front-of-house manager would adjust in the mirror without thinking about who shined them. She scrubbed the bathrooms that the customers would use without wondering if they were clean, because in places like Magnolia House things are simply clean the way the sun simply rises. By the invisible labor of people the room does not see. Rose did not mind being unseen. She had made a kind of peace with it. She had a daughter named Maya, 17 years old, top of her class, already accepted to 3 universities on partial scholarship. She had a small apartment on the east side she had kept for 9 years. She had a sister named Denise who called every Sunday and never let the call go under an hour. She had a life, a real, specific, completely hers life. And every morning at 4:30 a.m. when she put her key in the back door of Magnolia House and felt the cold of the handle before the building had warmed up, she thought about Maya's tuition. She thought 3 more years. 3 more years of this and Maya walks across a stage and nothing that happened in this building will have been for nothing. That thought carried her. It carried her through the mornings when her knees ached from 9 years of hard floors. It carried her through the afternoons when she took her lunch break alone in the supply closet because the break room made the kitchen staff uncomfortable if she sat there too long. It carried her through the evenings when she stayed late because someone had to, and it was always Rose because Rose never complained, and management had learned that not complaining was the same as not minding. She minded. She just carried it quietly. The way people carry things when they have decided that the destination matters more than the weight. Have you ever carried something so long and so quietly that the people around you forgot you were carrying it at all? Drop a yes in the comments. Because what happens to Rose next is going to feel like your story. His name was Gerald Pruitt. He was 52 years old. The new general manager of Magnolia House, brought in 6 months ago from a hotel group in Atlanta to increase revenue and reduce operational costs. Gerald had a way of walking through the restaurant like he was appraising it for purchase. Eyes moving, head slightly tilted. The look of a man calculating what everything was worth and whether it was worth enough. He had reduced the kitchen staff's hours in his first month. He had renegotiated the linen contract in his second. In his third month, he had eliminated the staff parking lot and made everyone pay for street parking, which cost each employee approximately $180 a month. He presented this at the staff meeting as a strategic reallocation of resources. Rose had sat in the back of that meeting and done the math in her head. $180 a month. That was Maya's textbook budget for a semester. She said nothing. She carried it. Gerald did not know Rose's name for the first 4 months he worked at Magnolia House. He knew her as the cleaning woman. He referred to her in emails as janitorial staff, building maintenance, and once, in a message to the owner that Rose was never supposed to see but did because she cleaned the office, as the overnight problem. Because Rose's schedule sometimes ran into the early morning prep hours and Gerald felt this was inefficient. The overnight problem. 11 years. Rose had been cleaning that building for 11 years, and in 6 months Gerald Pruitt had reduced her to a scheduling inconvenience. She carried that too. She added it to the weight she was already carrying, and she kept moving. Because Maya needed 3 more years. The Tuesday it happened started like every other Tuesday. Rose arrived at 4:30 a.m. She worked through the morning. She finished her shift at 1 p.m., changed in the supply closet because the staff bathroom was occupied, and she did not want to wait, and was walking through the dining room toward the service exit, the way she always left, through the back, because Gerald had mentioned once that janitorial staff using the front entrance created the wrong impression for arriving guests. When she heard her name, not Rose, not Mrs. Carmichael, hey, from across the dining room, Gerald Pruitt was standing at table 7, the best table in the house, corner position, view of the garden, the table they kept for VIPs and investors, with 2 men in suits Rose did not recognize. Hey, Gerald said again. Come here. Rose stopped. She looked at him. Something very specific happened in her chest in that moment. A feeling she recognized the way you recognize a sound you have not heard in years but never actually forgot. She walked to table 7. The 2 men in suits looked at her the way people look at furniture that has been asked to perform a function. Gerald gestured at the table. This cloth has a mark on it. He pointed to a small spot near the edge of the tablecloth. Barely visible, the kind of thing you would never see unless you were looking for it. I need it changed. We have guests arriving in 20 minutes. Why wasn't this caught this morning? Rose looked at the tablecloth. She looked at Gerald. She had set that table herself. At 6 a.m., she had checked every surface. The mark he was pointing to was a water shadow, the kind that appears when condensation from a cold glass sits on linen for hours after the table has been set. It was not there at 6 a.m. It appeared because the table had been used. It was not a cleaning failure. It was physics. She started to explain this. Gerald held up one hand. I don't need an explanation. I need a clean tablecloth. That's your job. Can you do your job? He said it in front of the 2 suits. He said it in the tone of someone who has decided that the person they are speaking to is a problem with legs. Rose felt that 11-year weight shift on her back. She felt her daughter's name somewhere in her chest. And she said, of course. She went to the linen closet. She came back. She changed the tablecloth with the 2 suits watching and Gerald checking his phone. When she finished, Gerald looked at the table, looked at his phone, and walked away without saying anything else. Not thank you. Not that'll do. Nothing. Like she had not been there at all. Rose picked up the used tablecloth. She walked to the supply closet. She sat down on a bucket in the small cold room and she put her face in her hands. And she cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. The quiet kind. The kind that comes not from one thing but from 11 years of things landing all at once. She sat there for 4 minutes. Then she wiped her eyes. She stood up. She straightened her uniform. And she made a decision she had been building toward for 11 years without knowing it. I need you to feel that moment. 4 minutes on a bucket in a supply closet. Have you ever had a moment where something small carried the weight of everything? Tell us in the comments. Because Rose's 4 minutes is the moment this whole story turns on. Rose had worked at Magnolia House for 11 years. But before Magnolia House, before the mops and the supply closets and the service exits, Rose Carmichael had spent 8 years as a food safety inspector for the city of Nashville. She had left that job when Maya was born and the hours became impossible and her husband left and she needed something that paid weekly and fit around a newborn schedule. She had never gone back. But she had never forgotten. A food safety inspector does not forget what they know. The same way a surgeon does not forget how to read a body just because they stopped practicing. The knowledge lives in the hands. It lives in the eyes. It becomes the way you look at the world, specifically, permanently, without being able to turn it off. For 11 years, Rose Carmichael had been cleaning Magnolia House. And for 11 years she had been seeing things. Specific things. Documented things. Things she had noted in a small notebook she kept in the inside pocket of her cleaning apron. Not because she planned to use them, but because an inspector's habit does not die just because the title does. The walk-in refrigerator that ran 2 degrees above code for 6 weeks in the spring. The shellfish stored below the poultry on 3 separate occasions in direct violation of cross-contamination protocol. The pest control log that was signed without inspection for 4 consecutive months. The dishwasher temperature readings that the kitchen manager had been recording incorrectly, not from malice, from not understanding what the numbers meant. None of these things had made anyone sick. But all of them were violations. Documented. Dated. Signed. 11 years of them. In a small notebook. In the inside pocket of her cleaning apron. The notebook she still had when she walked out of that supply closet on a Tuesday afternoon in October and made a phone call. She called a woman named Patricia Chin. Patricia Chin was the regional director of the Nashville Food Safety Division. She was also, and this is the part that Gerald Pruitt had no way of knowing, Rose Carmichael's college roommate for 3 years at Tennessee State University. They had stayed close. The way women stay close when they have seen each other through the specific difficulty of being young and ambitious and underestimated in the same season of life. Patricia picked up on the second ring. Rose said, "I have something I should have sent you a long time ago." Patricia said, "Send it." Rose went home. She scanned every page of the notebook, all 43 pages, and emailed them to Patricia with a cover note that was 3 sentences long. Then she made a second call. This one to a man named David Osei, an investigative journalist at the Nashville Courier who wrote a weekly column about labor practices in the hospitality industry. Rose had been reading his column for 2 years. She had his email. She had never used it. She used it now. The inspection happened on a Friday morning. Rose was not there. She had requested a personal day, the first personal day she had taken in 3 years, and Gerald had approved it with the particular absent approval of a man who does not register the absence of people he has not been seeing anyway. 3 inspectors arrived at 8 a.m. They had warrants. They were thorough. They were there for 6 hours. At 2 p.m., Magnolia House was issued a conditional closure notice, 14 documented violations, 30 days to comply. The notice was public record. David Osei had it before the ink was dry. His article ran on Sunday morning. The headline read, "Nashville's most exclusive restaurant has a dirty secret, and the woman who cleaned it knew for 11 years. By Sunday afternoon, Magnolia House had lost 11 weekend reservations. By Monday morning, 4 of the restaurant's largest corporate accounts had suspended their memberships pending review. The owner, Harrison Webb, flew to Nashville on Monday afternoon. He met with Gerald Pruitt in the office that Rose cleaned every morning. The meeting lasted 22 minutes. Gerald Pruitt's employment was terminated at the end of it. He was walked out through the service exit. The same service exit Rose used every day because Gerald had decided that janitorial staff at the front entrance created the wrong impression. And here is what I need you to understand. Rose did not win because Gerald was punished. She won in the supply closet when she made the decision. The punishment was just what the truth looked like when it finally stood up straight. On Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after the tablecloth incident, Rose's phone rang. It was Harrison Webb. He introduced himself. He apologized. Not in the careful managed way of someone coached by a legal team. In the specific uncomfortable way of someone who has just read an 11-year document and understood for the first time what had been happening in their building. "I want to meet with you," he said, "if you're willing." They met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the restaurant. Harrison Webb was 67 years old. He had started Magnolia House 30 years ago with a loan from his mother and a belief that food could be both excellent and honest. Somewhere in 30 years the excellence had stayed and the honesty had slipped. He told Rose that. He did not make excuses for Gerald. He did not minimize what she had experienced. He did not offer her money and ask her to sign something. He said, "I have been absent from this place for too long, and people paid the price for that. You specifically, and I am sorry." Rose looked at this man across a coffee shop table. She thought about 11 years. She thought about Maya. She thought about the supply closet. She thought about the tablecloth and the 2 suits and Gerald's phone and the way he walked away like she had not been in the room. And then she thought about what she actually wanted. Not revenge. She had never wanted revenge. She wanted to be seen. She wanted the thing she had built, 11 years of showing up, of doing the work right, of carrying the weight and still arriving on time, to mean something to someone who had the power to say so. Harrison Webb offered Rose the position of operations manager at Magnolia House. Not janitorial supervisor. Not building coordinator. Not a title designed to feel like a promotion while keeping the function the same. Operations manager. A seat at the table she had been cleaning for 11 years. On her first day in the new role, she walked through the front entrance of Magnolia House for the first time in 11 years. The host at the front desk, a young woman named Tara who had never seen Rose outside of her uniform, looked at her and said, "Can I help you?" Rose smiled. "My name is Rose Carmichael. I'm the new operations manager." Tara's face did a thing that Rose would think about later and laugh about privately. The specific look of a person recalibrating everything they thought they knew about who was in which room. Rose walked through the dining room. She passed table 7. The corner table. The best table. The one with the view of the garden. She looked at the tablecloth. Perfectly clean. She kept walking. Maya Carmichael graduated 18 months later from Vanderbilt University with a degree in public health. Rose was in the front row. She wore a dress she had bought for the occasion, not because she needed to impress anyone, but because she wanted to be dressed exactly right for the moment she had been carrying toward for 11 years. When Maya crossed the stage and took her diploma and looked into the crowd for her mother, Rose stood up. She waved. Maya found her face and smiled, the specific smile of a daughter who knows what that moment cost. And Rose thought not about Gerald Pruitt, not about the tablecloth, not about the supply closet. She thought about 4:30 a.m., about cold door handles and floors that needed mopping and a notebook in an apron pocket, about the weight she had carried and where it had brought her. She thought, it was worth it. Every single day of it. It was worth it. And here is what I want to leave you with. Rose Carmichael did not have a dramatic moment. She did not confront Gerald in front of the restaurant and deliver a speech. She did not go viral for saying something perfect. She did something quieter than that, and more powerful. She used what she knew. She used what she had been building without knowing she was building it, for 11 years. And the reason I need you to hear this is because some of you are in a situation right now where the only thing between where you are and where you are supposed to be is the decision to use what you have. Not wait for someone to give you permission. Not wait for the perfect moment. Not wait until you are angry enough or brave enough or certain enough. Just use what you know. Show up with what you have. Document what you see. Call the person you have been meaning to call. Take the personal day. Walk through the front door. Because here is the truth that Rose Carmichael proved on a Tuesday in October in Nashville, Tennessee. 11 years of quiet work is not weakness. It is evidence. And evidence, when it finally speaks, changes everything. Before you go, what hit you hardest in this story? The supply closet? The notebook? Maya in the front row? Drop it in the comments. And please share this right now with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you are not here yet. Some people carry the weight quietly. They show up early. They stay late. They document what they see. They protect what they love. They wait. And when the moment comes, they do not need to raise their voice, because the work they have done speaks loud enough for both of them.